This whole presentation is for you to try and help you with your short game and understand how to use these wedges to your benefit. It's called the sole. We're going to talk about the sole and our grooves and how to measure bounce, maybe. And we'll show you how to clean up when one of these guys gets rusty. A C grind, which is basically the same composition as an S, but the C has relief on the heel and the toe. And it's very popular on the tour, and we have it from 54 on up to 60 in 2-degree increments, so 56, 58, and 60. And what that allows you to do as you open up the face of the club, here's the relief in the heel. You'll see a C. What that allows you to do is keep the leading edge low under the ball as you open it up and add loft for different shots around the green. And so we didn't introduce it with the introduction last year, but we wanted to save it, and it's very popular on tour. So we have that edition. We also have an edition of a full toe, a new design of the full toe with full grooves all the way across. And this is a beautiful new shape of that, as well as we have a new sole called the J grind. And again, it looks like a J, but this is kind of interesting and a little different than the last full toe. As you get in the heel and open up the heel for loft, and as you open up the heel, there's less area to hit, so you move out away from this guy and move up the face because you're increasing loft, and that's why we put the grooves all the way out to the toe. And you'll get some grass stains up here and rough and so forth as you're hitting. And this is friction, the edge is friction. We have a micro groove that also adds that friction, but in rough, it's very important to have that ability. And the other thing that we have done is we have put that full toe in all the other lofts that we have and grinds of the Jaws Raw. So we have that in everything that we have the full toe. So it looks bigger, the face looks bigger. When you open it up, you get real advantage from the spin as you move away from the hosel. But it's very forgiving and easy to hit. Yes, the chamfer we have put in all our wedges, even the new full toe and obviously the C grind extension. The chamfer is a cut. It's not a rounded bullnose type configuration. It's actually a plane, and what it wants to do is skid. And when you get into situations where you're using a technique of pitching, which is 35, 40 yards on, you want to put the sole on the ground and let it skid through the ball. Okay. Anything beyond that, you're actually hitting the ball first, and you're a little bit steeper attack angle to the ball. But when you're trying to hit, especially in firm conditions, you want to skid. And if you have a tight leading edge radius that is here, okay, that would be typically on a wedge, you have to be really precise. This gives you some forgiveness, okay? It acts as a skid plate. And you have bounce behind it, but you have a lot of bounce right on the chamfer. So it's very forgiving. People love it, and the tour loves it. And that's where it came from. It was, I started grinding wedges like that for a lot of players, and so that's why we put it in the Jaws Raw line. So it's might as well have everybody benefit. But it's in the high lofts only, 54 on up. You don't really need it. Typically lofts under that, 52, 50, and so forth, you're hitting the ball first, and you don't need that. You don't need to skid. The fitting system, we have a number on the bottom. We have 8, 10, and 12, and a lot of people think that's the bounce. Sometimes it is, but it's really a fitting system based upon your technique. The higher the number, if you are steep, if you have a lot of set on your takeaway, you're typically going to be steep to the ball. You'll need a higher number. You'll need a 12. 10 sometimes, but 12 most times. And when you look at the ones that we have 12, we have an X, which has a lot of bounce. It's a very technical wedge for a lot of players. Good players use it, but you'll see this sole is very narrow, has a lot of bounce. Without the chamfer, you'd have 20. Okay, so it still has a lot of bounce, but that's for somebody who is steep. But it has a relief in the heel, so it's still flexible where you can open it up. Very good if you're steep, and like Molinari, I just put that in his bag because he is that he's a little steep, but obviously these guys open up their wedges and want to do as much as they can. The other one that is a 12 is a W. This is a wide sole. This is like a mini Sure Out, but a little bit more technical. It narrows in the heel here, so you can still open this a little bit, but it's wider, very forgiving. You can hit behind the ball and it'll skid, and if you don't have a chance to practice, much, this is really good. And we have a Z grind. This is another wedge that was a sole geometry that came from the tour, and in a prior life I had this too. But again, the chamfer, a bigger chamfer, and fairly flat here, and this has about, I'd say, 8 degrees of bounce right here, but really, really forgiving, and it has relief on the heel. But this is the 8 is for people that are shallow, which is ideal, so you don't have a lot of set. That type of technique where it's ideal, where you can create the speed by the rotation of your body, rather than trying to hit it with your hands at the end. So we have a lot of different options for all kinds of technique, but that's where the 8, 10, and 12 come from. To get fit for the right technique, on the sole geometry is absolutely key. See what you play in the irons, okay? If you're in graphite and iron, especially in an R graphite, you ought to look at graphite in the wedges. Because there's sometimes in a bunker, not that you need to have a lot of speed, but you need to have some speed. But wedge to be fitted is really, really critical. And you can fit indoors. It's very easy to fit indoors. You just need a tight surface to match the sole. And it's easy, because you're not, to fit, you can fit anything if you're hitting the ball first, so it's no big deal. It's the shorter shots that you need to be fit, and the technique that you have, whether you have a lot of wrist set or not. Well, if you have a lot of grass, also sand is a consideration too. If you're in softer sand, you need to have more of an angle, more bounce, okay, and softer sand. In softer conditions, the W or the X would be ideal. Or the S, if you're a good player, the S. Or now we introduce the C if you want to open it up. That has plenty of bounce. You need bounce is your friend. You need to use it, okay? If you don't have enough, then you won't skid. So one of the things I wanted to also add is that I told you about the fact that the faces are raw. The tour loves a raw head or face because it doesn't reflect, also maximum capacity of the groove. But they're going to rust. And when it rusts, it'll look kind of nasty, okay? When I was making wedges for Lee Trevino, he would take the wedges, he lives in Texas, he would put them outside for a couple days, and they would look like, the whole thing would look like this. He wanted friction, and that's spin, and that's control. So you can leave it like this, or you can go to a hardware store and get some Scotch-Brite. And there's different colors of Scotch-Brite, which is the roughness. There's white, green, and purple. Purple seems to be the best. And all you do is you take it and run it along the same line as the groove. You don't want to take it this way because that'll round the edges. You want to keep those edges nice and clean. And you do this a little bit. And in the store if you have a really rusty product. So I'm going back and forth on the toe, but here on the face I'll just go along the groove. So it takes a minute or so, and you keep going, and this will come off and look really nice. And it's kind of the stuff that you would wash a pan with, or clean a pan that's been used. In a few more minutes it'll be perfect. It's easy to do it because we cover them with a nice covering, not only plastic, but we have a covering, so this is not going to rust on the store. But when you take everything off, it will. And for the folks that are buying them, this is the best thing to do. And wedge cleaning 101. And this comes in a pad. You just cut it up with the scissors in 2-inch strips, and they'll last you forever.